Hello friends, it's 69 and I'm feeling fine here on the Noclip podcast, episode 69. Looks like we made it. And I'm delighted to be joined by Frank and Jeremy. Jesse's internet right at the last second said, no sir, you cannot talk about the Stanley Parable today. Although, to be honest, all of us are probably going to struggle to do that without doing any spoilers, which is what we'll try. Isn't that right, Frank?
Yeah, that's what I was already thinking. That was my shower thought. I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this game, but you can't talk about it, but that's why it gives urgency that everyone should play it. We'll return to it in a moment, but yeah.
It's going to be the shortest talk about a game ever. Jeremy Jane, how are you doing?
Good. I'm pretty good. I'm a little tired. We were just discussing how this is an early hour for an animated conversation about video games, but I'm drinking caffeine. I'm stimulating my brain, and I'm ready for Stanley Parable to avoid all the spoilers.
Terrific. I'm drinking Diet Coke because it's never too early for a morning soda in my world. Are you tired because you were up all night working on a video game? Is that because I feel like that's where you're at in your life right now?
Yes. One of the things I put in the podcast document today was, I believe the wording was, a growing obsession with battle systems, and yeah, we'll get back to that.
All that and more coming in today's episode. Of course, this podcast is created and supported entirely by our friends over at patreon.com/noclip. And if you'd like to support this 100% ad-free podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to bunches of bonus videos, bonus podcast episodes, Discord access, and loads more, head over to patreon.com/noclip. And today is a red letter day, folks. And not just because we dropped all that Ravenholm footage, which we'll talk about in a second, but also it's the first time we get to shout out our Battle Pass holders.
Yes.
As part of Noclip's ridiculous funding mission, Frank came up with the terrific idea of having a $69.99 price of a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X game tier, which is mostly full of cosmetics, including getting your name written out at the top of the podcast. So thank you to Cody Krieger, Aaron L. White, Forrest Pruitt, Cameron Ladd, George, I'm going to get this right, Circotis, we're going to go with? Okay.
Sounds right.
And of course, our good friend Tohir Tilyav, who we all know and love, who's been a patron of ours for many, many years. There are multiple people who already give over this amount every month. There's a couple more, I know, for sure. If you're listening to this, you have to swap to that tier, otherwise it doesn't happen, doesn't come up. And unfortunately, I can't go chasing it every single week because it'll take forever. So, yeah, jump on in there. And thank you so much. And thank you so much to everyone who's been changing their tiers. I'll talk about all that stuff later on. But we're putting up a bunch of really cool stuff for patrons, which we've been kind of sitting on for a long time. This week, they're going to get access to a hour and 50-minute long Todd Howard interview, which we never put up. So, now we're putting up a lot of this stuff for patrons. So it's pretty cool. We've a little bit of news here that Jesse put together. But before we do that, I just want to chew the fat. How's your week been? Jeremy, how you doing? What's been going on over in Jane Land?
I'm good. Yeah, no, everything has been good. Spring has sprung. It feels like summer up here in Sonoma County. I've got stray cats coming to my back porch, as well as a raccoon, which is kind of like a stray cat, but more dangerous. I considered putting out food for the stray cats, but then I thought it might attract more raccoons. So yeah, lots of companionship, and the spiders are worse than ever. So this is like my prairie home companion, but it's me just talking about the spiders increasingly getting to be a problem.
What is my prairie home companion?
Oh, sorry, Prairie Home Companion was I think it was like an NPR. It was like a public radio show by this guy Garrison Keillor.
Okay.
I hear that old piano come down the avenue.
And he would just talk about this. I've never listened to it. I'm just aware of it through references, but I believe he was describing just kind of like a quaint Midwestern existence about I don't know if it was like a fictional town that he made up. I don't really know the thing, but it was just him being like, and the pie man made pies today, and they were more delicious than usual. But Miss Marianne couldn't have pie because she was diabetic now, and that's it. So it's just that, but me talking about cats.
Oh, terrific! Just a simple life. Like today, I fixed a chair or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice and. Well, don't look it up because he's probably just some writer in Manhattan who's making it all.
He's
you know
probably
what I mean?
a bad person too.
Yeah, he probably got cancelled.
He probably did.
Probably did some heinous shit.
He probably very quaintly described it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all of the characters in his radio play were like people he murdered.
Yeah, those were all his victims.
I have to say, I'm both excited and terrified for you because this time of year, yeah, it is starting to get hotter. We got the little raccoons. We have raccoons here in Oakland that kind of come up and down, and this is usually the time of year where they're feeding their babies. So they start to get a little bit more aggressive with like getting food, and then in like a month's time, you'll see the babies turn up. You know, the babies will be going out on the trash can hunt with mom. But when we lived in Maryland, yeah, if you because you live in the woods, and we lived in the woods as well, and the fucking spiders, man, they just emerge.
They're
all their size.
I felt something. So like I psych myself out all the time because I kill so many spiders that I'll be like going to bed and feel a little something on my arm, and I'll be like, oh god, and then it's just like a whatever, like a loose thread. But the other night it was actually a spider. And
no.
And I felt like I was like 12 years old. I turned the lights on. I was like, I'll just sleep with the lights on for a little bit, just in case I feel something else, and it's like actually another large spider. So yeah, life is good.
Have you named the cats?
No, there's two. There's a tabby and there's an orange one. Their names are Orange Man and Tabby because as you know, I'm a very creative person.
Orange Man is a good name, but just be careful. You're getting close to. Who was it? Who was that writer from your part of the world?
I don't know. Obsessed with cats?
No.
H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah.
Is that the second time it's come up in 2 weeks? I think it has.
Yeah, we keep referencing H.P. Lovecraft's horrible cat. I mean, I'm sure the cat was fine, but
cat was probably fine. Cat was an innocent bystander in that particular piece of racially motivated hatred. But
one of again, don't look up H.P. Lovecraft's cat. But if you must, a fun
this is a Streisand effect. All
a funny piece of extra lore is, I believe his people say, oh, but his dad named the racist named cat. It's like, you can,
but he kept
you
the
can
name.
Change a name of an animal, like especially.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not good for their mental health to be called something different halfway through their life, but like it's probably better than being called a racial epithet.
I think the only reason I don't mind bringing it up over and over again, because I don't like doing it for like purely comic effect, because it is awful, but I do think that it's a very quick way of reminding people that guy was a shithead. Because it's like, you can say that people had thoughts and feelings and stuff, but when they name their cat that, there's no comeback. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He was a piece of shit. There's no, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a very like 0 to shithead in like 60 seconds.
It's funny too, because that's kind of the interesting thing about H.P. Lovecraft is he had this kind of like cursory understanding of other cultures, insofar as he'd be like, oh, like, other religions have like a sense of like oneness and like all togetherness and like, like Buddhism kind of like all one sort of stuff, like unification. But the way he saw it was terrifying. So he was like, oh yeah, all is one, but that's like the most terrifying thing you can imagine. And so it's kind of like this inverse, like schizophrenic, horrified version of universal love, which is really funny to me. He's like, like what if we were all one, but that one was like a octopus monster.
Right. Yes, exactly. And we're all one, and also fish people, and also, but you could, and there's, like death of the author and all that sort of stuff. It's like impossible. Once you like learn this piece of cosmic truth about H.P. Lovecraft, suddenly you can see him and his thoughts in every piece of work. It's like, oh, I see the subtext is just like screaming at you then. You're like, oh no, this is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's. I mean, that's why H.P. Lovecraft is still worth exploring, even though he's a piece of shit. Is because it's kind of like this interesting, like diary of a madman effect. Where you're like, man, this guy was really scared of people.
It's like interviewing murderers or something. You hope to gain at least a sort of a sense of yourself or of them or of humanity through. Anyway,
through fish
Orange
people.
Man. Orange Man. Shout out to Orange Man over there.
Orange Man good when you're talking about the cat that lives in my backyard.
Orange Man's a bit, yeah, you got to be careful too. You might have like, if you have like somebody who's very anti-Trump or very pro-Trump and you called your cat Orange Man, they might read into that.
I didn't realize it until we were having this conversation. I didn't realize it.
I know.
I know.
Got to be careful. See? Can't name your cat anything these days. Means Frank, have you ever had a cat?
No, never.
Not even like a backyard cat that you lured with a bowl of milk?
No, I'm trying to think if there's no. I've never had any pets. That's why anytime I go to friends' houses, I'd always be like envious and play with their pets. Just I've never had one or had the capacity.
Are you not allowed to have them?
No, I feel like just like one, I don't think we ever could afford it. Things like that. Just it was just outside my reality to have a pet.
You can feed a stray cat pretty much anything. We had a stray. As far as I was concerned, growing up, it was my cat, even though it never came in the house, and we fed it like scraps of potatoes from like at the back garden, which may have contributed to its early death. Honestly, I'm not quite sure. It also like kind of stopped coming around our house, and then started living with the next door neighbor because she fed it actual cat food. I named it Whiskers after the cat food because it was the only cat thing I knew because it was like. I was like 7 or something.
Feeding scraps of potato to a stray cat is the most Joycean anecdote that I've ever heard in my entire life. Yeah, like that could be from 1893.
Yes, there's a Seamus Heaney poem about it, I think, as well. It's,
Scraps for the Cat, the famous poem.
Yeah, exactly. Very famous. Frank, how was your week? How are you doing? How's packing going?
I feel like I'm finally like at a calm with it, where like the first 2 weeks was like a lot of panic and stress, and now I maybe once I set up the internet at my new place and like saw the upload and download speeds, I felt like really excited. And then the last thing for like my home office is I think even today, in like within an hour or two, there's gonna be an electrician fixing the outlets in my room because none of them work anymore.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I was like testing because I set up a power strip where my big computer station was gonna be, and the outlet wasn't gripping the surge protector or anything. So I was like, so I had to do all the research and hire an electrician, but. Yeah, I feel good. And then yesterday I was like looking up like packing TV boxes, mattress bags. So like going down the list of like last minute things to prepare. And so yeah, I think next Wednesday after we record the podcast, then I'll finally tear down the computer and start moving everything over. And then yeah, within 2 weeks I'll be all like set in my new station. So yeah, I feel pretty good.
Man, those I remember being really impressed by America when when it comes to moving stuff, where you can just go to like I think it's like a Home Depot, right? And just get like boxes for televisions. You're just like, what? Who the fuck? They made these just for moving them because you obviously got rid of your huge box. You know, there is maybe nothing more annoying in the modern world than trying to get rid of a television box with all of that like fucking whatever that white plasticky bubble shit that just like statically sticks to everything. You have to snap it to fit it in a modern trash can. They don't want to pick it up in the trash thing. But then, yeah, having those little boxes to move it. How big is that TV? It looks pretty big.
It's. I think it's a 55-inch. Yeah. And the reason I got this TV is when I moved 4 years ago, the TV cracked in the move.
Oh no!
I didn't protect it properly. Like I put like blankets and pillows, and it's like, yeah, this is works. And then I was so naive, and so that same day I moved in, I went to Best Buy and I bought a new TV out of shame. So now this time it's like, all right, a TV box is maybe $20 or $30. It's not that bad, and I'll buy bubble wrap and stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm taking the precautions so I don't screw up.
Yeah, it's like you have to be careful of like stress breaks in televisions now because they're just like not, you know, if you pick one up by like one side of it, the rest of it will have like too much pressure on the screen or something.
Yeah, it's scary, but yeah, I've had this one for a while, and so like I was already like again just going down the anxiety checklist of like, well, if this breaks, then I know I'll go to Costco and I'll get this TV. But I don't think it's gonna break. I think it'll be okay.
You're like preloading your anxieties.
What I'm always impressed by is whenever you go to conventions like PAX or something, and you the day before when everyone's setting up their booths, you see all the studios drop off their TVs and routers, and sometimes they buy fresh new ones. Like that stuff is always impressive and crazy to see how just in 4 days a giant like TV testing center set up with hundreds of consoles and monitors.
That's why I think it's crazy when you go to like retro game things because they have to do that, but with CRTs. and it's just like absolutely ridiculous.
The main advantage of the CRT is it doesn't snap in half when it's in the back of your truck.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can throw a Wiimote at it and it's totally fine.
You can throw those things around.
Man, well, don't break anything, but if you do, always remember you can just like, Noclip's equipment budget is there. So if the word there, if that soothes your anxieties a little bit. The most embarrassing breaking thing I had was I got Grand Theft Auto 4 on Xbox 360, I think. Yeah. And I was playing it, and at one stage I had to move the console, and the game was in there spinning, and I turned it on its side slightly, and it just shredded the disc. It just went, God. And I've been playing for like a day, and I just drove straight down to GameStop. Damn it, I did it. GameStop, and just bought another one. I'm like, fuck it.
See, that's what happened with my GTA 3 on PS2. As I was playing, and I think this is before wireless controllers. Someone tripped on the wired controller, yanked the PS2 down, completely destroyed the CD, or DVD. But as a kid, the old trick we used to do was you go to Blockbuster.
Oh, man.
You go to Blockbuster and you rent a game, and then you swap the disc, and you go back to Blockbuster and say, please, sir, my disc is scratched. Can I have a different one, or can I get a different game? And we would do that, PS1 games, PS2 games, and then at some point they put stickers on the thing. And I think you could peel the stickers off, but once the stickers are on there, the con was busted.
Okay, yeah, they got you.
Yeah.
Man.
Damn,
I remember I went to
like Ocean's 11.
Yeah, I did that with like copies of Return to Castle Wolfenstein on Xbox, SmackDown on PS2, GTA 3, probably Vice City, probably San Andreas. Like, I did that at least 6 times.
The Blockbuster like enforcement squad that is existing out there still somewhere for the last Blockbuster is like suiting up and loading their rifles to come get you now.
Dude, before I worked at that GameStop, I used to go into it like all the time because it was like there was nothing in my hometown, and there's a couple of video game shops. You just go in there all the time, same as most teens. And I remember they had a bunch of like, I think it was Half-Life 2 copies, and they had the Steam keys still stuck to the inside of the box on the shelves. And I was like, dudes, does this keep getting returned? And they were like, yeah. I was like, yeah, this is why, you dumbasses. But I'm glad you at least brought it to their attention, Frank. It wasn't like the heartbreak of another kid coming in to play GTA, finally got their parents to say it was okay, they could play GTA 3 and shoot all those prostitutes, and then suddenly the game
I feel like that's something I would get prepared for, is when you'd walk out of Blockbuster, the first thing I would do is take out the disc and look, and I could identify if it was scratched or messed up and immediately go back in. Now, with everything's digital, or the games just download onto the system, I feel like you don't have to worry about scratch discs. Or maybe I'm just older and don't leave open discs out.
Yeah, just miss manuals, man. And big old boxes. Big old trapezoid boxes. But what I don't miss is Embracer Group buying games companies. They are continuing to embrace every game studio in the world into their warm death hug. They will slowly consume all of video games. And the latest victim in that is an acquisition of a bunch of Square Enix's Western studios. This from Gematsu. Embracer Group to acquire Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal from Square Enix. The acquisition includes intellectual properties such as, tell me if you've heard these before, gents, Tomb Raider.
I've never heard of that.
Famous game, not made by the already acquired, because Core, I guess, made the original ones. Deus Ex, another acquired one, and Legacy of Kain. That was them. This is fun for us, considering we have been months trying to get a Legacy of Kain documentary off the ground and are pausing it because we might be doing a bigger doc on, I don't know, some of the studios we're talking about here. It's kind of, we're not meant, I don't know where we're at with, I don't know if this affects it. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, $300 million is the cost for this, I guess, is what Embracer Group are paying for it. Jesse put down some cool comparisons here. When PlayStation bought Bungie, it was $3.6 billion. When Microsoft bought Mojang, creators of Minecraft, it was $2.5 billion. And when Embracer bought Gearbox, creators of everyone's favorite Half-Life 2 expansion packs, and some other games, I think. Sorry, Half-Life 1 expansion packs. They spent $1.3 billion. All went into Randy Pitchford's Magic Fund. And that's why he bought the Magic Castle. So, Yeah, 300 million people are saying doesn't sound like a lot. I'm no business person, so I am not going to try and pretend like I understand what the value is here. I imagine there's quite a big headcount in these studios, and I don't know if some of these games have been particularly profitable. Bungie has Destiny, which has a big player base. I'm not sure if you could say the same about Legacy of Kain, even though those games are rad. Or like maybe Tomb Raider. I guess you could, getting one of those games up and running again would probably take many years of employing lots of people. So I wonder if this was a case of Square Enix just trying to get this off their books more than anything else. But yeah, it's a pending Disney approval. Embracer Group will take over the Avengers as well, and Guardians of the Galaxy, which I don't know if either of those games were necessarily looking for a sequel real hard, even though I think Avengers maybe didn't do as well. Maybe neither game did as well as Square Enix in Japan wanted, but Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, we were only recently talking about on this podcast. So there you go. If you had to pick, gents, of the three, I think we got an email about this actually. Yeah, my name is Fat Mike on Discord said, which IP obtained in the Embracer Square deal do you think we'll see an announcement about a new entry from first? Let me spin that question maybe. Which one would you like?
It's not mentioned in it, but I think now they own the rights to Sleeping Dogs, which I think was published by Square Enix, and that game was amazing. We only ever got one.
A man who never eats pork buns is never a whole man.
They did put out like a PS4 edition, and I don't know if there was DLC or expansion, but another Sleeping Dogs would be amazing. Because yeah, that was basically GTA set in Hong Kong. And it played great. There was driving. There was like Arkham Asylum type combat. We never got a sequel. The closest thing to it is kind of Yakuza, but Yakuza feels more like a JRPG, whereas Sleeping Dogs is more of a straight up action game. So I would love another Sleeping Dogs.
Man, I forgot about Sleeping Dogs. That was made by a Canadian studio who are no longer around. There's a couple of other ones actually we should probably reference here. Square Enix apparently are keeping Just Cause and Life is Strange. So those are not on the table. So Jeremy, which would you like of Deus Ex, Legacy of Kain, or any of the other ones?
I'd like to see Deus Ex get a new lease on life, get a new set of hands working on it. I think that it's a beloved IP. It's got a lot of life left in it, and I don't know. I've tried some of the more recent Deus Ex games, and they haven't gripped me as much. So maybe I could be more enticed by something that was like getting a little back to the original design of the original Deus Ex or something. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. Sleeping Dogs here, unconfirmed reports. And speaking of Deus Ex, Jeremy, Thief is also part of this as well. Apparently. So now what I'm doing is, because this is kind of like what happened with the Bethesda stuff when you had Obsidian, Black Isle's progeny, Obsidian, bought by Microsoft. You have Bethesda bought by Microsoft, and suddenly the Fallout New Vegas 2 possibilities emerged, where you have like Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky now suddenly are reconnected with Fallout and with New Vegas as well, which they did in that deal. I'm looking through this. Embracer is quite a large group at this stage. They've embraced a significant amount of studios, and I'm going through here trying to see if any of them, if there's any like Warren Spector, Romero, anything, because like obviously Harvey Smith and them are over at Arcane, and that's a whole different thing. So unless Embracer by Microsoft, I don't know if that's happening, but I wonder if there's anything else here,
like any matches made in heaven where you could hand a Legacy of Kain off to someone who would really do it justice.
Yeah, like there's some ones you probably wouldn't want to see, like 3D Realms is owned by Embracer. I'm not sure. I don't know, maybe like see a 3D Realms Deus Ex or Thief. That would be something wild. God, there's so many studios. Volition, all the Gearbox stuff.
It's not anything that a bunch of people haven't said before, but Embracer Group sounds like a dystopian like amalgam corporation that just consumes the universe.
It's 100%. It's like a blob.
Like they like invent like the gray goo nanobots that consume the universe and turn it into paper clips.
Man. Okay, if anyone can think of a good matchup for that. I also do wonder if half of this deal, we'll see if a lot of those studios get massive headcount cuts if this deal goes through in the next couple of months, which obviously would be terrible to see. I do wonder how much of that 300 million is for the IPs and I wonder if, Embracer, I'm trying to think if Embracer have licensed out their IPs or done deals with external studios. It seems like the type of thing maybe they wouldn't need to do, considering how many studios they now control in their blob. But that could be interesting too. Obviously, there was the System Shock projects that are happening. There's Night Dives 1, and there was the other one being done by a bunch of the ex folks over in Boston. But yeah, I wonder that's obviously gone through some changes too. But yeah, interesting to see if Deus Ex and Thief are back on the table for some people. And of course, everyone's talking about bringing back Legacy of Kain, which is, I think, a vocal minority, but I can see it. Frank's played a lot of Legacy of Kain recently, capturing gameplay for us. Does it hold up?
Aesthetically, it's pretty cool. The controls, it's not. Because I'm playing a different game now, and I'm having such a good time doing gameplay capture for this other game, and I was like, man, Legacy of Kain was rough to go back to. Like, again, the aesthetics are cool. It's like Spawn, but the control, like...
Oh, yeah, it's cool like Spawn. Got it, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a stiff PS1 platformer. It doesn't play great. Like, it's kind of got some neat melee, but it just feels like a PS1 game.
Can you say what the other game is? Can you mouth it to me or something? Are we not supposed to talk about it yet? See, I thought he mouthed Golden Axe, and I'm pretty sure we're not doing a documentary.
I thought he said Golden Eye.
Golden Eye. Yeah, we're not doing that either. Could you try again? I was going to put it in chat.
Hold on.
He's going to put it in
He's
chat.
gonna write it down.
No, could you do it like... No, don't write it down. Can you do like what is it, Pictionary? What's it called when you try and...
act it out like charades.
Charades, yeah. Can you do a charade of it? And we'll try and...
How many words?
How many words?
Two words.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for
All
people.
right, first word.
There's no video version of this podcast.
All right.
He's looking into the sky. It's not... We're not doing No Man's Sky. Is he looking? Binoculars? Telescope? Are you looking at the sun? Sun.
Okay.
Sun cross. Sun.
Well,
Sunblock. Sun. Why is he drawing an
Ash Wednesday?
Sun forehead. Sun ash.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay. Nice. That was good. That was a tough one.
Sun, solar. Okay. Oh, I like the ash. That was clever.
Yeah,
that was clever.
yeah.
Yeah. That was clever. Yeah, I guess we're not supposed to talk about that, but that's fine. We put it out there in the world. I like how sloppy this podcast is getting with all our secrets. We're just like shooting the shit about stuff.
Just leaving the folder of secrets open on the desk.
if Embracer Group owns Volition, give Volition the rights to everything. Like the Saints Row games have such a scrappiness to them that I adore. Let Volition make a Tomb Raider. Let Volition make Thief. Like, I want to see them make any game possible. I love Volition.
Okay, how about this? Volition do like a sort of a Embracer Group metaverse open world melange.
Yeah.
Lara Croft hanging out with Raziel.
Because you can have like a Saints Row game, because every gang is already such a like absurd genre. So you could have a Tomb Raider gang of explorers, and it's Lara Croft and Azazel or whatever, and they're hunting and the Thief. They're collecting stuff. And then you have all...
Poor
yeah,
Garrett.
Mr. Thief. Yeah, Garrett.
How rude.
Yeah, then you have a cyberpunk gang, and that's Deus Ex and everything else.
You just have all like the Square Enix ones come over, and they're like shivering and be like, "No one's been paying attention to us.
Well,
we
again,
were so
like,
badly treated by our previous employers."
and if Embracer Group did try to launch their own Fortnite, they do now own enough IPs to where it could contend. Because Fortnite also did just add even more Street Fighter characters. There's Sakura, there's Blanca, there's Wu-Tang Clan is in Fortnite now.
Wow, the woo. Well, how much?
Yeah.
They did. Some of them ain't getting in. Some of them.
So there's no ODB, but they don't actually have like the real members. They have people wearing Wu wear, like Wu-Tang Clan jackets.
Okay.
And you have a Wu-Tang emote where they throw up the W and it plays like yeah. So it's
kids still
adorable.
love the woo. Is that are they?
It's
They're still doing it.
no kids. I think we played Fortnite with some people, and then some kids were like, I don't know what Wu-Tang is. I don't know what this is.
They're like, I think my dad has that tattoo.
These kids need culture. Someone needs to bring culture to these
Oh,
kids. So the Wu-Tang Clan isn't at the game. It's like Wu-Tang fans.
Yeah, Wu wear. Yeah,
Interesting.
So yeah, but you can get like an axe that has the Wu-Tang Clan symbol on it. It's
Gotta be
all
a samurai sword. It has to be a samurai sword thing.
What? It's like, yeah, I'm trying to think what it is. It's like a staff. It's a staff with the giant Wu-Tang logo.
Okay,
on it.
yeah. All right, that marries. Imagine the mad bants between Duke Nukem and Lara Croft.
I'm Duke Nukem, and I'm coming to get the rest of you alien bastards.
If I had a coconut for every time some lunatic said something like that.
Just good stuff all around. So many possibilities there.
While we're talking about Square Enix, I need to report a lesser tragedy that occurred in a week of greater actual tragedies. A lesser tragedy went unnoticed. I listen to a lot of JRPG music playlists on YouTube while I'm working and while I'm hanging out and just doing my thing. They're nice. They're atmospheric. You get the town music. You know, it's kind of like it makes you feel like you're in a JRPG as you go about your life.
Nice.
And there was a mass culling by Square Enix. They issued like 1,000 takedowns. Literally, like every JRPG music playlist channel that I listen to, just like 80% of their videos were wiped out this week.
That's terrible.
And so Square Enix, like a month or two ago, launched a Square Enix music channel. And so I came across that in trying to figure out what happened. And I was like, all right, well, surely they're replicating, like they'll post a bunch of this music, but it's all interviews with composers and stuff. And there's only like 2 playlists on there. So it's like, if you're gonna kill all my playlists, give me some playlists to listen to.
They're gonna try and sell it or something. Man,
I don't know if it's on Spotify either. I don't use like Spotify or anything, so I don't know. I need to find a new source for my fix.
Man, that is disappointing. That's like worst case scenario, that type of stuff. That's like, we're kind of used to it with some people, you know, like Nintendo, you've got one eye open when you're putting Nintendo stuff on the internet, kind of thinking, or maybe if you're publishing some footage of a cancelled, unfinished game, maybe, you know, sometimes you're just kind of a little bit more sensitive to it, but you'd think like Final Fantasy music's like, I feel like that's like the bedrock of YouTube. Like it's like one of the first things that went up. Like what about all those AMVs? Are they all going to get taken down now?
I don't know. I was thinking about like people who do smaller video essay channels often use old JRPG music for the background. And I don't know how the algorithm does with picking that stuff up in the few seconds between VO pauses or whatever.
Right.
But it'd be a shame. I was watching a very good video essay that had like 17K views on it the other day. And about battle systems. So I've been watching a bunch of videos just about battle systems, and I was like, I hope this doesn't get taken down, because there's like it's like a 45-minute video that has like 15K views, but it's wall to wall like Suikoden 2 music.
Come on, Square, don't be jerks. Don't do it. People play your games and they like your games. Don't be mean about it. Let them share it.
Celebrate the legacy of JRPGs.
Exactly. Let the fandom share. That's people listening to it are thinking. They're thinking about Cloud Strife for free all the time because of this music. What are you doing? Anyway. I mean,
we joke, but arguably it is like a good kind of like nostalgia inducer. Like I think that the music is one of the strongest like nostalgia bringers for me, and I think that's like, I don't know, I feel like that creates the torrent of nostalgia that makes people want to buy things like the Final Fantasy VII remake. Like it really does feel like having those playlists, because those playlists are like, they have like 2 million views before they got taken down. Like these aren't niche. These are things that people are listening to en masse. So you would think that's like free advertising, but I guess they got to get that. You know, I think I read something the other day that it's 3 million plays in a year on Spotify to make like, I think it's like minimum wage for an artist or something. So
awesome.
I can't imagine they're making a ton of like money off of streaming royalties or anything. So I don't know. Maybe it's just like a control of IP kind of thing.
Bummer. Well, anyway, from video game studios being jerks to, I don't know, the Stanley Parable. How do we do this? I feel like we basically can't talk about this.
This is the story of a video game called The Stanley Parable.
I guess for people who don't know, the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe came out, which is an expanded reimagining of the critically acclaimed award-winning indie game, The Stanley Parable, which came out in... Okay, let's have a guess everyone. What do you think, Jeremy?
Came out 2013? Is that too long ago?
Okay, Frank, what do you think?
I think it is 2013.
You were both correct. Came in 2013. A game that at the time was very hard to talk about because it is a game about games, or about playing games, and about talking about games and criticizing games, and it's a very, very fourth, fifth, sixth wall breaking experience, and very tough to talk about. Very short, experimental, super smart game. I should have known. I didn't know what this was. I thought, they're just putting this out on consoles or something. I don't know.
What do you mean we never put the game on consoles? Of course we put it on consoles. We didn't. Excuse me a moment.
I should have known that that obviously if they're just putting it out on console, if they're just doing an update to it, it's of course going to be about what your expectations are. Like, where is all the new stuff? Should I buy this if I played the original? Yada, 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 yada. And much like the original experience, it's kind of fucking with you. It knows what it's doing. Without getting into what happens or anything like that, I guess, Jeremy, first of all, what's your experience been? Have you been enjoying it? I guess maybe I can ask that.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly what it needs to be, which is I put in the podcast document that it's the Matrix 4 of video games.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
It is a game that is intensely aware of what you'd expect from it, and then goes to great lengths to both satisfy that and also subvert it. I think it also extends upon which, like, the thing that Stanley Parable did originally that was really impressive was that it became kind of like this Nautilus shell that like consumes itself as it tries to like stare back at itself while you're experiencing it. It's like it's a meditation upon the experience that you're having during the experience. So it's just kind of like constantly doing backflips in on itself. And this game, the Deluxe Edition, is kind of like even more of that. It's thinking about like what it means to make games and the relationship between people who play games and people who make games. And yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. I if you haven't played Stanley Parable, this is I wonder, it would be weird to play this, I guess, for the first time as the Deluxe Edition, but I don't think it would be.
They do
a bad
ask,
thing.
right? At the start, it's like, so I don't know what happens, but the first thing that comes up when you start this game is, have you played the original Stanley Parable?
Yeah.
Which was a weird question for me to answer, because it was like, yes, but it's been 9 years, so I don't know if I remember everything. You know what I mean? Like, I remember the start of it, but like, having gone through it again, there was definitely bits like, oh, I remember that's new. But like, some of the new stuff you can kind of like tell, and some you can't. So I do wonder, what it's like for people. It's the number one question I've been getting is, should I play the original first? And I feel like you just need to get this one and then figure it out, maybe.
Yeah. I will say that it is easy to, the game teases it well, like, hey, this is going to be some new stuff. So if you have never played it, ignore the new stuff just until maybe you get sick of the original stuff. And then when you're
That's
ready,
a good
embark.
point.
But I'm trying to remember. I would say, like, I feel like the original Stanley Parable, you can kind of rinse after like 4 hours maybe and go through a lot of the choices.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. So I feel like if you've never played Stanley Parable, still get the Deluxe Edition. Pick no. Maybe then it gates you until you've gotten enough endings. But then, play it for 2 or 3 hours. And once you get it, keep exploring it. Then once you feel like you've gotten it, then it should be apparent, like, okay, here's where the new stuff is. And then once that ride begins, I loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really glad I got it. I think the deal is still up. I think it was 33% off if you had the original in your library, which was pretty cool, I thought. I'm trying to see how much the game cost on its own anyway.
I think it's 25.
Yeah, you're right. $25. So yeah, it was whatever. It was under 20, closer to 15 if you had the original. I'm not sure if that deal is still, I think it's still available. But yeah, really love it. Like, we should do a doc. We should reach out and do something there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's also a very good GDC talk that it's by William Pugh. The name is like How to Be Funny Making Video Games or something like that.
Okay.
If you just look up like funny video games GDC William Pugh, you'll find it. But
starting great. So, I'm William Pugh. I co-created the 2013 game The Stanley Parable with a guy called Davey Reedon over in America, but he's not here and I'm here, so I get to just take all the credit. It was me. It was all me. But
very good GDC talk about like the role of comedy in games and kind of like what you can do with games in comedy that you can't do in other media. And yeah, I don't know. It's been a while since I watched it, but I watched it after I played Stanley Parable, and I found it very insightful.
The Ultra Deluxe is hilarious. There were like,
oh, it's really funny.
2 or 3 times where I like guffawed laughing. Like I was just, when you celebrate a laugh, you're like, oh my God, that was so well done. Like it was a lot of that. Like my wife was like, are you okay? Like what the fuck was going on? You don't laugh at work. You're usually miserable. Why are you laughing downstairs? Yeah, super, super good.
One detail that like blew me away is at one point you can find a QR code.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you go to that QR code, you uncover something, and the level of detail that they put into this like thing that you can be so easily missed blew me away.
Nice. Okay.
So the game is just packed, and even like it's in the original too. You go through a conference room, and the walls are just covered in jokes about working in corporations and doing meetings and all. Like the game is so funny, and then the expanded content, like oh God, every you go into a room and you want to pour over everything, and every like meter there's something funny. Like they really nail it, and it's impressive.
Yeah, it rewards you really, like having that fine-tooth comb. You kind of want to explore. Yeah, it's one of those games where you really want to see everything, which is really impressive considering the type of game it is and what it's trying to do.
I got one more thing to add to Stanley Parable. It was like kind of making the rounds on Twitch and a bunch of streamers were playing it. They were also there. I won't specify the like specific part of the game that this was at. What?
All right. No, go on.
We've just done
so. I don't know. I have no idea what you're going to say, but we've done so well. But
this is something you would not experience. That nobody else who plays the game, unless you're a famous Twitch streamer, will experience this. But as people were going through an area that I won't talk about, they were updating a site to have a picture and a caption reflecting different streamers, and then they would start spamming it in the chat of those streamers so that the streamers would go to the site relating to the thing that was in the game, and it would say like so and so is exploring right now. Here's a picture of them, and it was a screen cap from the stream. I'm trying to be as vague as possible again because of the game, but like it created this extra kind of like layer of meta where someone would be streaming the game, they would go to the site, and then it would have like a thing about them on the site for it. It was
weird.
Yeah. It was interesting.
Wow. Yeah. God, there's a lot. I feel like I have to explore more of this thing. It's wild.
Yeah.
Have you guys completed it? Because I haven't.
I don't know. I've played a lot of it, but I don't know if I've gotten every ending or anything.
Yeah, I think I've put like 2 hours. Like I said, it feels like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours into it, and like I keep getting to a point where it's like, oh, this has to be it, and then and then it's like, holy shit, and I'm sure there's more beyond what I think the limit is, and that's amazing. But yeah, it's impressed me.
There is an ending as well that I believe was in the original, but now I'm struggling to remember because it's been so many years, that involves doing a repetitive task for 4 hours.
Oh my God.
Which you can use the console to get around, but the amount of dedication there is absolutely ridiculous.
A lot of people have just realized they got the achievement for not playing the game for 5 years, which is pretty cool as well.
And now they upped that achievement, so now if you own Deluxe, it's go 10 years without playing it.
Oh my God. Ridiculous. That's the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Check it out. Yeah, that'll be a hard one. That would be a hard one to do a documentary on. We thought Outer Wilds was tough, but that one will be really tricky. Or maybe enough time has passed where you could just do whatever and just say, don't watch this unless you've played the game, you silly goose. One game that I played, which I guess came out today on Game Pass, but I was playing it yesterday, is Loot River. Which is an interesting game. I saw it on Steam and I picked it up, and then I realized that it's on Game Pass. So now I'm like, oh. And the one thing I was going to say was that I think that the one thing I'm finding against it is maybe the price is a little bit high on Steam. So if it's on Game Pass, I think maybe it's a good shot. It's $25 on Steam, and at least maybe it's unfair because I've only played a couple of hours of it, but I haven't seen the depths of its content yet. But it's an interesting game. It kind of feels like a game that was born of a hook or a sort of a novel idea that maybe doesn't warrant the scale that it's been given, but it's interesting and very visually enjoyable. So it's basically a Souls kind of game or a roguelite where you are a character. It's like it's not isometric, but it's like sort of like straight isometric. So it's not 2D, there's depth to it, but it's kind of like looking down. And you're in a world where it's just like huge, like river or barges or sewers or whatever. And whenever you're standing on a platform, you're able to like move it up, down, left, right, and your character up, down, left, right. So you really want to play it on a gamepad, otherwise you're doing WASD and cursor keys. So it's imagine like a top-down sort of roguelike-y, Souls-y game, Souls combat, but like roguelite because there's a meta progression and there's a little area you go back. It's very Souls inspired. Like there's a lady who brings you back to a place where you could level up and buy things, and then you go into the world, and if you die, you come back and you can upgrade your character during the runs and all that sort of stuff. But also, yeah, the world itself is on these sort of like platforms that you can, almost like barges, you can sort of like move them to each other. It's kind of, somebody's told me it's like a Diablo and Tetris, which is kind of like that. Like you can connect barges and then the enemies from one barge will run over, and then you can like disconnect as they jump on. Like there's no like part of the barge that you have to go to pilot it. It's just like magically, if you're standing on it, you can move it around in 4 directions. And yeah, it's interesting because there's sort of like a puzzle aspect to it. It messes with the combat. I really like the look of it. It's just like a very slick, well-lit, pixel arty kind of thing. Impossible to explain with words. Go check out the Steam page. And yeah, I've been enjoying it because it's kind of like familiar enough where you kind of know the beats if you've played enough of these games, but it definitely feels fresh. I'm just not quite sure. I haven't played enough of it to see if they warrant the sort of moving the barges thing, because it is kind of a bit, idiosyncratic or kind of out there or weird. But yeah, it's been getting sort of like decent reviews. Some people have really connected to it. I don't think it's particularly long. I think it's maybe like 6 or 7 hours or something. But it is on Game Pass, and it feels like a good Game Pass game, like a game you maybe wouldn't buy unless you were as enamored by the Steam page as I was. But might be worth a couple of hours of your time. At the very least.
I watched a little bit of gameplay from it. So is the like Tetris block barge moving stuff, is that are there puzzles you're solving with that, or is that kind of more so just to like manage the combat in an interesting way?
There's kind of puzzles, like for instance, sometimes like you won't be able to get past certain areas unless you get the small barge that's at the bottom, so you gotta move the other ones out of the way, kind of thing. Bits like that, but you can't like combine them or anything from what I've seen so far. There's a bit of like maybe combat puzzles in that you can create choke points and stuff like that. You can kind of cheese people too a little bit if you get like a good angle going. They do snap on somewhat of a grid, but if you get like a cheeky angle and you've got like a long pole arm or something, you can kind of like use it to like jab across the barge and stuff like that. Yeah, but there are some enemies who can fly, for instance. There's like bats that will just like fly onto your barge, or other ones that have there's one interesting thing, I guess, where one of them is like a sort of has like a toxic or poisonous AoE when you hit them, and if you move the barge, the AoE stays in like the air where the barge was. You know what I mean? So you can kind of get away from it that way, which is quite cool. It doesn't like stick to the character or anything. But yeah, I don't. It's like I have only played like 2 hours, so it's hard to say whether they do a bit more of that later. But I don't think it's that heavy on the puzzle stuff. There's big boss fights too, which are pretty cool. Where you have to be a bit smart about where you are on the barge and not. You can create choke points, but you can very easily create a cul-de-sac for yourself as well by accident and be like, oh, fuck, I have to get out of here. Yeah, there's probably some high-level play here as well that you get after a bit more time.
Yeah, it looks interesting to me. Doesn't it have, here, I'm looking up a picture right now, but doesn't it kind of have the Dead Cells thing where it's like 3D through a pixel filter, or am I misremembering?
Yeah, I would say if there was any game that apart from the fact that Dead Cells is like 2D side-on, you know what I mean? And this is like top down. It's not top down like GTA 1 and 2, but it's at an angle, but it's not isometric. It's flat. Like I don't know, so many games below or any, it's hard to, I don't know what the name is for this perspective, but it's fairly ubiquitous. But
it's
yeah,
like 78 degrees angle.
Right, yeah. But yeah, I'd say graphically, yeah, in terms of the style of it, it's definitely close to Dead Cells. It's that like pixel, but with nice post effects.
It's like it looks like Hyper Light Drifter by way of Dead Cells or something.
Right. Yeah. That's a good show.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, it's neat. I think if you're on Game Pass, you should definitely check it out. 10% off at the moment. So it's $22.49 if you want to pick it up full price. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is one that comes back around with some updates as well. And bit more player feedback. I don't know where the studio are based. Straka Studio. So I was wondering if they were Eastern European or something. Pushikniva. It could be Russia. Where are they? Serbia. They're in Serbia, I think.
Hell yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I was thinking about picking it up too. Steam's got their like roguelike and Souls-like sale going on, which is kind of like an odd thematic pairing. Or I guess it's only a thematic pairing. It doesn't really make sense in any other way, because Souls games are not roguelikes, and roguelikes are typically not Souls games. But
Right.
I was perusing the that's kind of up my alley, is games with a short, difficult feedback loop where you're constantly mashing your keyboard to restart the same 5 minutes over and over again.
Yeah, did you see they have like a Steam? I found this because Steam have like a Steam sale for roguelikes and roguelites.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
They had a little. Did you see that? Yeah, is that what you're saying? Did you see the video they put together?
No, what was the
Where
video?
They were like, yeah, they had a little video where they were explaining what they both are. I thought it was cute. I thought it was like a clever little way of doing it.
Yeah.
Hey, so Going Rogue is a super awesome sale featuring roguelite games.
And roguelike.
And roguelike.
Yeah.
Difference?
Yeah.
Those are not the same.
No. I mean, some people will say they are.
Yeah, I think the dev's based in Belgrade, and apparently they follow me on Twitter. So
cool.
If they're listening, congratulations on launch, and yeah, best of luck with the post-launch support and everything else. It's published by Superhot, I think. Superhot Presents. So they also have their own little publishing arm, and with funding from the Slovak Arts Council, which should have been a tease for me. So yeah, I'm gonna keep playing it. I think I'm gonna complete it. I've been enjoying it, and we'll see how people vibe with it.
Superhot they do kind of an interesting melange of games when it comes to publishing, because they also
love a melange.
They did after the first Frog Detective came out, I believe they gave funding to Grace Buxner for the second Frog Detective. So that's kind of an interesting mix of roguelikes and frog-driven detective games, and it seems like they kind of just publish whatever is cool, as opposed to going for like a very kind of like cohesive theme or something.
That's rad. Yeah, we've never done anything. We should. I know. Are you a big Grace Buckner fan as well, Frank? Yeah, I remember you see. Yeah. Sorry, Bruxner, right?
Bruxner, yeah, I got to meet her at like PAX 2019, and I got to chat with her for a while, and just like, speaking of being funny in video games, like Stanley Parable, I feel like Frog Detective, which I think is a 2-person team. Those games are hysterical and like such a unique, weird sense of humor, but like they're adorable. I think you could actually play them with your daughter. Like they're good for all ages, but it's so funny and so dry, and like I adore those games. And the third one I think is going to be coming to Game Pass, I think next year or whenever it's done. But yeah, Grace is someone who also for a while she got into making TikToks to market her game, and her TikTok page is like the funniest video game marketing I've ever seen. Like I would love if we could interview her or do something with her in the future, but she's amazing. She's really funny on Twitter.
Nice.
Hi besties, do you like frogs? Oh my god, that's really great. I have such good news for you. This here is my frog that I made. It's called Frog Detective. Do you like it? Well,
last one we have here for the games is Jeremy's growing obsession with understanding RPG battle systems. What's going on? So Jane Dev 2, you working on some tactics nonsense, or how's it going?
So I don't want to cannibalize Jane Dev too hard here, but also I think this will be the second episode. I'm figuring out the shape of it, but maybe this is a hype building. This isn't me stealing my own content. This is me building hype for it.
Jane Dev, by the way, is Jeremy Jane's show over on Noclip Crew, where he attempts to learn how to make video games, even though the only thing he knows in this whole world is how to operate a camera. He doesn't know anything else.
I've never learned. Yeah, I don't even know how to like take care of myself. I rip cereal boxes open and eat the cereal off the floor. So I've wanted to make a tactics RPG for a very long time. Before I took kind of like a hiatus from learning how to make games. There's like an old Noclip podcast episode from like early 2020, late 2019, where I talk about wanting to learn to make games because I like tactics RPGs. Shout out. And then the other pillar of my vacation was spent some time when I got back off the road messing with Unity and learning some more C# stuff, learning some more Unity, and finally starting to like see how it all comes together. And so I finally like committed some time, learned it. I figured out everything. I figured out how to do A-star pathfinding, which is a algorithm that it assigns a value to every. So I have an 8x8 grid, so 64 grid squares. So what it does is it takes a target position and a start position, and it assigns a value to every single square on the grid for how effective of a route it is to get from A to B. And the reason I had to learn this is because I originally made a very simple pathfinding algorithm that just like if the target's above you on the x-axis and above you on the y-axis, increase x and increase y. But the problem is it'll never go around obstacles because it'll never move away from the target to get around an obstacle. So what A-star does is it'll only tell you to go that path if the path is viable. So I learned this whole pathfinding algorithm. It took me a long ass time because I'm not good at like math or understanding how algorithms work. But once I cracked it, it was really fun because now I have like a functional tactics RPG system that I've been working on for a couple weeks. And so I've been adding in like skills and attacks and like different enemy types and stuff. So I've got this whole like tactics RPG system that's totally functional. But the interesting thing is that I've been so stuck on kind of like mechanical, just like technical stuff, trying to get around that I've kind of put off learning the like thinking about rather the game design aspect of it. And so the interesting thing that is happening now is that in my mind, the most difficult thing about making a tactics RPG battle system is like making it function, making the pathfinding work, making the skills work, being able to call all those things, making AI. But now that I've got all those things kind of like just fundamentals in place, not too complex, but working, functional. There's like a Molotov skill that has like AoE. There's like a rifle shot that shoots across the whole map and hurts everything in its path. There's like a bunch of different shit going on. But now I have to figure out what makes the battle system interesting, because it's easy to assume that just like if you make all this stuff work and make a bunch of cool skills, it's like, oh, that's now you've got an RPG battle system. Now you can just make an RPG and then have battles. But I've been playing a bunch of turn-based games because I'm trying to understand what makes them interesting. Because like I think the thing that you need to think about is, when people who don't play RPGs think about like turn-based RPGs, they're like, well, that's boring because you're just like, you hit them and then they hit you and then you hit them and then whoever runs out of health loses, right? So it's just about not losing health. But different RPGs and different turn-based games do different interesting like kind of twists or gimmicks on that to make it so that you're not just hitting each other back and forth. So a couple examples I've been thinking about were like Into the Breach. Not really a tactics RPG, but very much a tactics RPG inspired battle system. The hook there is kind of that it's about like positional management. Everything is very low health. It's very easy to die. And it's kind of just about finding the optimal move on any given turn. It's about minimizing the damage that you'll take and that the buildings you're defending will take. And so it's all kind of about like understanding the board. And I think Into the Breach is a very good one because it has a large window for possible moves, but there's a very narrow window of optimal moves. And so I think that that's the interesting thing about a battle system, is creating a wide breadth of options, but then a set of systems or a set of factors that you're trying to understand so that you can make the optimal move within that. But it's not too narrow so that there's like an obvious right choice. And so that's something that I'm struggling to like understand and design from the ground up, because it's a difficult question. It's not a technical question. It's more of like an artistic game design question. So another one I was thinking about is Slay the Spire. And what Slay the Spire does is it's more kind of like RNG driven in terms of Slay the Spire. I'm sure a lot of people have played, but it's a deck building like RPG combat game. And the interesting thing about that is that you're trying not only to kill your enemies, but also some of the cards you draw will apply armor rating to your character. So you're trying to like keep yourself alive and get the right cards to mitigate damage and also kill dudes at the same time. So in that one, it's about like health and block management while you're trying to deal damage. And that's kind of the twist there. So I've been just like playing a bunch of turn-based games and trying to understand the unique types of friction that they apply, like the unique type of challenge and the unique like verbs that they're asking the player to do, whether that's like positional management or applying block, or like Persona 5, which I've been playing a lot, is about finding like optimal elemental interactions. So if there's like a water dude, you're trying to apply lightning to like stun them and stuff like that. So yeah, I've become obsessed with this, and I was wondering if you guys have any. Now, I don't want to put anyone on the spot. It's cool if you could think about this in the long term. But if anyone has any sort of like battle systems or anything that they've liked, or RPGs that they've really liked over the years, I was curious if any of them stand out.
Yeah, podcast at noclip.video as well. If you're listening and you have any you wanted to mention. The only thing I wanted to say, or that was coming up with me, was that I imagine when you're developing one of these systems, it's sort of an abundance of choice. And it's funny, when you were talking about all the different, like, Into the Breach is one that popped up for me as well, because I'm not so into RPGs or this sort of genre of combat. Like, I didn't really play much Final Fantasy stuff or any tactics or any of that sort of stuff. But obviously the combat in that one is that it's sort of like, the decision ends up being usually between one of two things. Like there's almost a phase of figuring out what the decisions are. Kind of like chess, where you're like, when you're looking at a chessboard, you're looking at the pieces, you're trying to figure out, what can I do? So that's like one phase, is like understanding the possibilities. And then the next phase is choosing the possibilities. And why I like chess and why I like Into the Breach, I think, for a similar reason, is that no one of those decisions it's usually not really obvious. Sometimes it is, especially at the start, if you're just putting your things in position or whatever. But when it gets down to those really tricky late game decisions, it's never like, you're never 100% sure if that was the right decision to make. And it's almost like the battle that's going on is in your head, of like what you should do and what might happen if you do that. And I guess the control of the AI being another thing, what they might do and how much they will do if you do something, where you can bait them, and how much you can sacrifice your characters or whatever like that. But yeah, it's almost like two different phases. One is like figuring out what you can do, and then the next one is actually deciding which one to do.
Yeah, that's kind of like the fun, because I love Into the Breach, and I played the absolute shit out of the game for. I think I had 3 days where I did nothing but play that game.
Oh man, it's so snackable. It's just like
it's
yum,
so
yum,
good.
Yum. Check out our documentary over on youtube.com/noclipvideo. Subset Games are responsible for two of the most imaginative strategy games of recent memory, FTL and Into the Breach.
My name is Justin Ma. I'm half of Subset Games.
And I'm Matthew Davis, the other half.
Yeah, we both.
It's funny you say that. I actually went and rewatched it the other day, and it's not something I often do, is go back and watch stuff that we've worked on before. But because I was a big fan of the game at the time, and it was cool to meet those guys. But at the Subset, But yeah, so I went back and rewatched it the other day. It was just kind of like. It's a really good interview. It's a really insightful into their design process and stuff. But they took 2.5 years. We talked about
FTL in that as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
we did both. Yeah.
But they spent 2.5 years just before it was like playable, the battle system and Into the Breach. And I'm starting to see why, as I'm making a grid-based tactics combat system, because it's just like the other interesting thing that's occurring to me is the amount of decision making that goes into, just like when you're coding these things, you realize that there are design decisions that you never would have considered. Like a big one was turn order in the system I'm making. At first I had it so that it would like assign kind of like an initiative or like speed thing to each unit, and then it would rank them by that, and then have a list that it goes through. And then I decided to switch that over to like a phase mode where you move all your units and then they move all their units. But there's like little things like that when you're coding that are just like, I need to code it one way or the other, and they're just like design decisions. You're like, oh, I'll just have tactics battle, and then all of a sudden you're making it. You're like, oh god, I have to decide if just these little things like that, or like if there's like damage over time, you have to make a whole separate script for like how damage over time happens and stuff like that. And like if there's armor rating that has to like apply to certain things, not others. And yeah, it's interesting how the technical feeds into those design questions, and it just becomes like it's instead of this kind of like left-brained task where you just sit down and just code it all out. I'm stopping every 5 minutes and getting out my notebook, and I'm like, what kind of battle system is this? Man,
I'm sure there's a lot in the small decisions when you're making something like that.
Yeah.
Frank, was there anything that was coming to mind for you?
I really like Final Fantasy X's battle system.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
You're going down!
That one's great because, like, turn-based battles can be slow sometimes, but Final Fantasy X, I feel like, goes by really fast because you can see the order of who's going to be attacking and when. And if you do a status effect or something, it'll change the order. So I feel like it allows you to make decisions much faster. And the other cool thing is you can swap out a party member without sacrificing a turn. So it makes battles go by so faster. You can heal. You can select the right character you need to do the right spell to nuke a character. That's my favorite system. And then it's been a while since I played Chrono Triggers, but I always really adored how Chrono Trigger's battle system would just appear on the map itself as opposed to going a separate battle system, battle camera. It would just happen on the same overhead camera. And I think it was still turn-based, but I thought that transition was really cool. And that was standard turn-based battle, but I did like Chrono Triggers also.
Neat. Can we talk about some more game dev stuff, actually? Because we got a little bit of time here. And next week's podcast, people should know, is a Patreon exclusive. We're going back to doing one special Patreon exclusive podcast a month. There'll be a little demo of it here on the public feed, so you'll be able to check it out. And if you want to support us, you can go do that. And we're also, it's for the $5 supporter tier. It's our lowest tier. And we've moved it down there because I thought that'd be fun for people in that tier. We're doing a review of the Doom movie from 2008. So we won't be talking much next week about other stuff other than Doom.
Big fucking gun.
So I thought maybe this is a good time to mention this. So kind of as a joke, Noclip has decided we're kind of making a game. It's not Jane Dev. It's not the show that Jeremy's doing over on Noclip Crew. But a friend of ours in the industry, Alex Austin, who we've talked about a bunch before. He made Gish with Edmund McMillan. He made Bridge Builder. He made Sub Rosa. We're basically hiring him for the month to make like what would you call it, a prototype or like a sort of a early start of a game idea. There's a video up for patrons where myself and Jeremy pitch him 5 ideas each. I had a quick meeting with him yesterday to sort of get his temperature check on the ideas and stuff. And in a very democratic way, he has decided to do none of them. So he said his favorite was he said in all of his years, whenever someone says, here's an idea for a game, and he's either definitely thought of it and then sometimes has done a prototype of it. He said the only time in like his living memory that hasn't happened is with Jeremy's Sandcastle game.
Yes. Let me just preface by saying this is a really good idea. If this blows up, I need to be part of this because I think this is a winner. So, when you're a kid and you're like at the beach and the tide is coming in and you build like a little sandcastle, but part of the fun of the sandcastle isn't just watching it be washed away, but also like building like a retaining wall to prevent the water from taking it out.
Yes.
I was thinking
he was like, Jeremy should make that game. The game you pitched about building sandcastles. We won't get too deep into it here, but he said that was like something. He said, it's not for me. He said, it's a really good idea. I couldn't do it. It's a different thing. But Jeremy should totally go down that rabbit hole. So I wanted to say that to you at least.
Awesome. That's very flattering because he's a very industrious and clever game designer. So like to think that not only has he not made it, but he hasn't thought of it that's cool.
It was fun. Most of the ideas I gave him, he gave me like feedback on like what the biggest design questions would be around those, which was really cool because I've sort of been like turning my gears about that ever since. He said the closest one, he said the one that would be interesting would have been the one I pitched where it's like a multiplayer destroy E3 thing. But he said again, there's so much art load on that, it's not really for him. It's a different type of thing. So I feel like we have an ethos here at Noclip where if like anyone on the team has something that they're really passionate about doing, I like to encourage people to go in that direction. So Alex was really passionate about this idea he's had for years and years and years and years and years. And it wasn't immediately one that I thought was quite interesting or sexy, but I think we can make it interesting or sexy. So he is really good at making physics and he has lots of like 2D game stuff and 3D game stuff. He wants to make a sort of a spiritual homage of sorts, but with a multiplayer twist of like the old like stunt car racer games or stunts. I think it was Jeff Crammond might have done the original stunt car racer. Came out in the 90s. It was like a first person driving game where you could make the tracks with loop-de-loops and stuff like that, and then you could drive them, right? Driving games, very well trodden ground. Trackmania kind of does some of this sort of stuff, but he has ideas for it, and he had loads of ideas about doing like multiplayer stuff or like having different weird cars. He wants to put things like a car that has a ramp on the back of it that you can use with somebody else, or he wanted to put like one of those bendy buses in it and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I'm cool to do this if you can start working on the tech and getting all that stuff done. But I want us to come up with the weird twist. Gameplay wise, mode wise, story wise. And I've been trying to think of weird ideas. And I kind of want the Noclip community to help us out with this as well, if they have any ideas, and pitch it to you guys. So I think the basic building blocks of this thing is it's going to be a racing game, which again, I feel like it's so well trodden ground that I was like terrified for him to go in this direction. So I kind of want to make it as weird as possible. Last night I was in bed thinking of like, could you make like a roguelike game that's about driving where like every lap you could do upgrades, or like you all start out on bicycles and maybe it's multiplayer and you all start on bicycles and then after a lap you're on like a fucking John Deere, and then or you can put all your money in, you can put all your upgrades into the size of your wheels or into like jumping or something like that, and like over the course of a long race, like by the end you're like in a, I don't know, fucking airplane driving down the track. I have no idea. Me and Alex had an idea where it was like almost like GTA Race, the old Grand Theft Auto modes where you had two teams. He kind of said it was like roller derby where you had two teams, maybe one of them has a ball and you're just trying to protect the ball carrier, and every lap you do you get a score for it. I played an old Half-Life mod that was kind of like this where you were on a train and every time you did a lap in the train you got a point. And he said basically that means that like one person's driving, but the other, whatever, 4 people on either team are just griefers. They're just there to like get in the way of the other car and try and like knock the ball out or whatever it is. I had another idea where we could do something Desert Bus style where it's like a driving game, but it's not about who's winning. It's about who doesn't quit first. So you could, like the game could go on for days, or like it's a game where we try and like perpetually keep going. So somebody has to check in. Like if somebody wants to log out, you need someone else to come on so you can pass the ball and give it to them and then they can go. I don't know. So these are all the ideas I was having with trying to make a driving game something weird and interesting. He can do multiplayer. He can do big multiplayer like he is Skate or Don't where he has 1,000 players on a server. We can do something smaller. But yeah, the world is our oyster.
One thing that comes to mind for a racing game is I would love it as in like Mario Kart, you can drop a banana peel or spikes, something like that behind. I would love it if you can drop ramps behind you to mess up the people driving behind you. So you could just drop a little ramp, and because then they would go off the ramp jump, and maybe it works or maybe it doesn't. But I also like the idea as the race goes on, the track is just now littered with all of these ramps that aren't even calculated to go straight. Maybe they go off, but like because that's what you can do in Fortnite is you can build as you drive. And so, and I always do it just to mess up my friends, but if you could just build ramps or drop ramps or spam ramps, because also the physics of his games are so satisfying.
Yeah.
But yeah, dumping ramps to throw off other races sounds really funny.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So that actually goes really well with what I was about to say, which is that I was going to say if there are ramps or jumps or something, it'd be interesting if one of my favorite racing games was Rogue Rash 64. I think it was just called Rogue Rash, but the Nintendo 64 version of Rogue Rash.
I never played the Nintendo 64 version.
It's the only version I've ever played. Right. I've seen it looks similar enough to the other versions. I imagine it plays pretty similar, but combat in racing games is always really interesting when it's done well. And like in Road Rash, you could spokes jam people, like ram a pipe into their spokes and send them flying and stuff. It'd be interesting if you could like I'm trying to think of a way, because I think it'd be too much if this game had like a co-pilot who was shooting a turret off the back or something. But it might be interesting if you could like throw dynamite out the window or something, so that like if someone throws down a ramp, then you hit the ramp, and then but maybe you can like counter that by like maybe you can only throw dynamite, like drop it out the window if you're in the air or something. So
right.
If someone drops a ramp, you could counter that by like hitting it and then jumping over them and dropping dynamite or something.
Road Rash 64 is just like it's the like 3D it's like, because the original Road Rash was like fake 3D, you know. It was like the road, it was like remember those old toys where you'd like do the crank and the road would come towards you on like a roller, like not a video game, you know, just like a toy. That's kind of like what the original Road Rash was, but obviously this is, you can just punch people. In the original Road Rash, you'd have like a chain you could like whip, or like a baseball bat you could like hit people as they're passing you, and all the cops had Irish names, which I always thought was quite funny. See, that's the thing. A car combat, you need to do that's novel. You're right. Like the Road Rash way of doing it is novel, because like, or like ramps instead of banana peels. Because the problem is like I feel like, yeah, like there's an opportunity in doing that, in really going into complete opposite direction of expectations, because like I said, there's so much well-trodden ground in racing games, but it's all kind of in the same ground, that like kind of the way Rocket League kind of went, oh, like you can do car games, but they're not racing or combat. It's like this whole other, it was like there all along, but nobody did it. And I wonder like what other weirdnesses there is. I do like the idea because he also does really good like human body physics. And if you had that on motorbikes, like what if you had a motorbike with like 2 sidecars and the other 2 people in the sidecars had like guns or grenades or something like that, like they could only spam grenades. I don't know.
Yeah, the balance might be interesting too, with like if you had a physics body, like a human physics body on a 2-wheel motorcycle, and then maybe like knocking people off of balance. I feel like the way Alex does physics is kind of like this, like kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. Like his human bodies are all kind of like it's not, I think it's inverse kinematics is what it's called. It's
right.
like when the legs actually like operate like legs.
Yeah,
exactly.
They can fall over and have to get up. Yeah.
So they're all kind of like stumbly. That's kind of the word I'm looking for. Where like when he does his walking simulations, it's and when I say walking simulation, I don't mean like Firewatch. I mean like a simulated but it'd be interesting to see how he does that with motorcycle physics, because maybe there's like a balance meter or something. So instead of taking damage, maybe there's like a corresponding stat that influences your ability to balance. And so the more damage you take, the more you have to like recover from a hit, and then you're kind of like sliding all over the course or whatever.
What if you've just made me think of, instead of doing circuits, I think circuits are like, can be interesting, but the thing about circuits that I don't like is that once you've done one lap of them, unless it's like about mastery, which I love doing on my, Formula 1 games in my race seat, like that's about mastery. That's about learning the right way around the track each time. But what I don't like about most track games is that like most tracks aren't that interesting. So going around them over and over again isn't that interesting. What if instead of like the sort of like the not Souls like, but the rogue light version of, like, imagine, so he has that game Skate or Don't, which is basically, it's like one of these side-scrolling jumping games like Alto's Adventure or something, but you're skateboarding and it's basically last person standing. The last one who's on a skateboard wins. Everyone else falls because they, they landed poorly, they didn't jump at the right time, that type of thing, right? If you had that as a racing game, or maybe it was single player, but you're driving into increase, like, the idea is to survive, just like in a rogue like. So you're trying to like, there's like ramps for you to, if your car goes on its side, it's over, and that's the run's over. But there are ramps you can go up that have like XP or something, or money, or whatever the fuck it is. And then after a while, you're done in that like biome. You stop at a petrol station, which is where you can like upgrade your character or whatever. And then you go, and then you're into like the next biome, kind of like Elden Ring, where you're in the forest at the start, and then you're in like the fucking snowy place, and you're in the thing. But each of those levels keeps getting harder and harder and harder, where the point where like you're just there's like loads of ramps or like twisty parts, and you're like, fuck, I really don't want to die, because it's like if you die, you have to go back to the start. Maybe there's some meta progression there as well, and you could kind of do that multiplayer as well. It kind of becomes like a run game. I'm not sure what the boss would be in a driving game, but
yeah, that's tough. Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I like the idea of doing because one of the fun parts of like the roguelike loop is after a chunk of the game goes by, it's like pick one of these 3 upgrades. I like the idea of doing that with the car stuff. And the other thing I was thinking is when you said that like getting knocked down or knocked over, the car flipping or whatever is kind of like the fail state. If we end up doing something that is circuitous, I think that would work really well with Frank's idea of the jumps and the kind of like dynamite offensive thing I mentioned. Maybe the track is deforming, so every round
oh, that's cool,
every time you go around there are more ramps from the ramp drops and more maybe like holes or deformations or like pit holes from the dynamite. So every time you're going around, it's not just about learning the shape of the track, but also kind of committing to memory the there's gonna be like on that big turn at the back side, there's like a ramp on the inside, so you gotta hug the outside and stuff like that. So you're constantly having to update your mental map of the track.
Yeah, that's interesting because there's like a bit of that in Mario Kart, but not really because like
Oh yeah, true.
they're quite long and not. It's only like I'm trying to think. It's just banana peels are the only thing that stick, right? Everything else is like it explodes or
Yeah,
a thing
or the
happens,
fake
right?
blocks. Fake blocks would be one too. But the interesting thing that might be different here is that in Mario Kart, it's quite low stakes. It does this kind of like what's the word? Like it elides the positioning. So if you're way in the back, you'll get better power ups to try and push you up to the front. It's the communism of video game racing simulators. But I think it might be interesting here if you fall over, you're dead and you're out of the race. And so it's maybe our game is a racing game that incentivizes much more kind of like careful, calculated play styles or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's almost better to like slow way down and kind of like go 5 miles an hour navigating a really hard part of the track, and everyone who's surviving has to kind of like slow down and weave through this really difficult part. So it I don't know, it might break it up in an interesting way, the pacing of it, if you're just gonna die if you crash.
Yeah, I'd love to like flip, even if you're gonna flip one element of racing games on its head, the idea of like being first is the most important thing. I'd love to like create a game in which that's not the case. Like it's not it's not the most important part of it.
Maybe being in first, like so if there's an upgrade system, maybe being in first gets you a faster accrual of like XP or currency or whatever. So maybe you're getting more upgrades, but the upgrades,
or you're first to the drops.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, that's a
you're
good
like,
point. Yeah.
You're reaching them first. It's kind of like organic.
Yeah. But then, so all that's giving you is like a stronger kind of like armory of tools to use. But those tools are only useful insofar as you can actually like stay alive using them.
Yeah. I wonder if you could do like really simple upgrades, like the way Vampire Survivor does. You know what I mean? Where it's like you collect a certain amount, survivors, right? You collect a certain amount and then it's like, bigger wheels, faster thing, blah, blah. Or like the meta progression on the outside then, you know, after you complete a level, maybe there's some thing like like miles traveled is the thing that like is your meta progression, and then for that you can like get an upgrade where it's like you can flip your car over once. Okay, we'll give you a reset, one reset you get. I don't know. All right, the wheels are turning. That's our weird project for this month that Alex is doing. I'm not sure how close to what the prototype will look like at the end of the month, but fingers crossed it can be something we can share with our patrons at the very least, and maybe this becomes just something weird we stick up on itch, or maybe something else, who knows. But get the gears turning, gents, and anyone who's listening, podcast at noclip.video, give us your good ideas so we can commercialize them. I guess I've just realized now what's happening here. But yeah, keep your ear to the ground for more of that. Gents, I got a couple of emails I wanted to get to before we wrap up. Can we jump on those?
Let's do it.
First one comes from Leon, who emailed us at podcast@noclip.video. Timely with the recent release of Ultra Deluxe version, but the Stanley Parable demo is distinct from the game proper. This is the conversation we were having last week. Evokes the feel of the main game, but is completely separate. I never played the demo for this. Did you?
No, I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, I think I might now, because if it's different... we were talking about this last week. Yeah, games that had specific demos made for them, which are you know, like Half-Life Uplink was the one that came up last week. So yeah, we'll check that one out. Dr. Hanky says, I wanted to ask if any of the guys played Future Cops LAPD back in the day. It was a PlayStation title, if I remember correctly, and it was amazing. The demo had a level of a single-player story, but that wasn't the interesting part of the game. The multiplayer, however, was included in the demo. You'd battle another player or the CPU as a future mech cop of sorts, and you would take over these turrets, bases, and expand while gathering resources to build up your special units, and you'd go attack the enemy base. It was glorious, and my favorite thing to play back in the day as a kid. I do sometimes miss those days when you just got a demo disc and played a bunch of demos and discovered new interesting games like that. I have never played Future Cops LAPD. I've seen video of it. Have either of you ever played this?
I've never even heard of it.
No, I remember. Yeah. I always remember seeing the box art because it looked like something out of like RoboCop, which looked really cool. But I never played it.
I feel like there's a whole genre of this like 3D piloting a thing. Like G-Police is kind of in here. You know, like bad draw distance PlayStation 1 3D games. And also mech games. There was a lot of mech games.
I played some of the Mech Warrior games back in the day a little bit, but that's about it.
Yeah, Steel Battalion. You know?
There's also a game called Brigador, which I think is like a recent game that is like a retro throwback to like future LAPD police.
Brigador is really good. I can't remember where. I can't remember if I was working for GameSpot maybe back in the day, or if this was a Noclip trip. But one of the guys who made Brigador gave me a code for it, and I'd never heard of it at the time. And played it, was blown away. I was with you, wasn't I?
It was PAX. Yeah. It was the last, wasn't it? We had the booth at PAX West, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, he popped up and gave us codes.
Yeah, we met the team, and I think they were working on a sequel, and I think I have a PAX exclusive pin, but yeah, it looked amazing. Actually, we got to play it. Yeah.
I'd never heard of it at that point, and then came home and played it, and was like, this is really, really, like, shockingly good. And then there's like there's a pretty big community of people who really love those games, or that game.
Dude, I need to play more of that game. You're right. That's one of those games I was like, okay, this is rad. I'm going to come back to it, and then totally forgot to.
Yeah.
Brigador. Future Cop LAPD also giving me a lot of vibes for, what was the one that came up in the DMA documentary? The time traveling.
Oh, yeah.
Remember N64 game? What's it called again? I have a copy of it here.
No, it's Body Harvest.
Body Harvest, yeah. And getting like
that
Body
game
Harvest
awesome.
vibes.
And so they came up with a game called Body Harvest, which was essentially a 3D free-roaming sandbox game in which you played a time-traveling commando who had to go back to various periods in Earth's history and defeat huge insectoid aliens. There were elements.
Body Harvest is such a strange game. It was one of those games that really scared me as a child because it's like it's very difficult, but it's also one of those games that's just kind of like has a almost like FromSoft kind of hands-off storytelling where they're just like, oh, the world is invaded by terrifying alien insects and you have to kill them. And then it was really easy to fail in Body Harvest. Like they could just harvest too many bodies, and then they were just like you could be off driving in the world. And I mean, again, I played this game when I was like 9 years old, so apologies if I'm getting a couple of the details a little fuzzy here. But from my recollection, there was a fail state where they harvested just too many bodies, and you could just be off like driving in the wilderness, and then it would just be like catastrophic fail state achieved. Like the aliens are too strong now, and it could because as you're going around, like the game is simulating the aliens like going around and killing the NPCs that are around, and as they did that, they were like harvesting them for power. So I just remember like playing as a kid, and you just mess around with games when you're a kid, and all of a sudden it would be like the aliens are too powerful for you to defeat. I was like, I was just enjoying driving like a bulldozer.
Oh my god, that's terrific. Now I want to so the driving game, right? So you've got like a nuke, and you're trying to like put it in like an alien that's on the other side of America, and you have to drive the whole way over.
That's cool.
What we need to do is just find I'm just like the marketing guy for that. All I want is a hook that I can sell. That's where my addition to this is. We need a word, like a play on word with like Rogue or Dark Souls or something, potholes.
It's funny though how much like that another really good GDC talk is about it's about a motocross game. I can't remember which one, but it's I think it's called The Hook and the Kicker.
Okay.
And the idea of this talk is that a game needs not only a hook but a kicker. So the hook is the immediately apparent thing about the game where you're like, oh, it's a downhill racer, and then the kicker is the kind of like unexpected thing about it, which would be like, oh, but you do tricks, and the tricks give you upgrades that let you have like weapons or something. And
right, yeah, I've seen this one as well. I wish I could remember which one it was.
It's an interesting design philosophy as well, because here it is, making the world give a damn about your game in 2018.
For everything. So what I like to call this in my head is the hook and the kicker. The thing that you are thinking in your head is exciting about your game, and maybe the way you've been selling it is probably the kicker. The problem with the kicker is that no one will check that out unless you've hooked them first. You need the hook first to actually reel
Who did
them
it?
It is No More Robots, Mike Rose. But it's an interesting design philosophy as well, because I think that the way that people choose a game to play is oftentimes they're thinking about the verbs that they'll be doing, the kind of experience that they're going to have playing this game. And so oftentimes making a game isn't just like what kind of like systems are like what kind of systems does it have, or what kind of battle system, or what kind of like it's more about what will people imagine themselves doing when they hear the description of this game in like a sentence. So it's kind of like that's where the hook and kicker comes in, because you're like, oh, it's a game where you do X but also Y, and that needs to be like actually, you know what, it makes me think of Vernon Shaw, who worked on Dream Daddy. When we did the Dream Daddy documentary, he changed my life by telling me about this idea, and I can't remember where he got it from. I wish I could cite the original source, but it was this idea of compressibility. And the idea was that a truly great idea is something that you can express in kind of like a sentence, but then as you, if that sentence intrigues you, you can then kind of like pull the idea apart and it reveals more layers. So for Dream Daddy, it was kind of like the, it's a dad dating simulator where you're a single dad who dates other dads. And so that on its own is, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of funny. And then it gets your brain thinking where you're like, is this like an ironic game? Is it like, is this a game where it's like, oh, it's funny because it's like gay single dads. And then you pull it apart and it's like, oh no, it's actually a very sincere, heartfelt, like, I don't know. So it was this interesting idea that really stuck with me, of kind of like having the one sentence pitch be something where it gives you a sense of what the game is, or like, I mean, this works for like movies and books too, I imagine, but it gives you an idea of what the game is, and it intrigues you enough that you're like, that interests me. But then as you like decompress it, you pull it apart, it reveals itself to be something more, which would be, I guess, like the kicker in this hook and kicker analogy.
That's okay. Yeah. Now I'm trying to think about.
Yeah.
I did come up with one other hook for the racing game.
Okay. No bad ideas in brainstorming. Let's go.
It's called No Seat Belts, and it's a racing game where if your car is hit too hard, your character ejects from the car. But the hook is you still have to get up and run back into your car and get back in. But other racers can hit you and eject you further down the track, or that's like Saints Row insurance scam.
We talked about the sort of Saints Row insurance scam thing. Yeah.
In Sub Rosa, I believe that's what the driving is already like, where if you get hit too hard, your character flies out and you have to get back in the car. So like the idea of having that tied to a real racing game that feels like a very Souls-like experience, where that's so miserable but also very funny.
Only problem with that is if everyone's trying to get down the track, then they don't want to go back and hit you, because it's like a disincentive. Yeah. But I like the idea of them. Was it Flat Out? Do you remember Flat Out, where they had those mini games where there was there was like bowling, and you had to like hit a button to eject your player through the windshield, and then they'd like fly down and hit like bowling pins or something. It was so stupid. Yeah, you're right. He does have a lot. I didn't know, and so in Sub Rosa, can you go through the windshield, or I know you can fall out.
I think so. Yeah.
Man, that game is gnarly. There's so much good stuff there. I came up with a stupid name. It's really bad though.
For our game, for Alex's game that he's making.
It's a bad name, and also it doesn't really fit because it requires a motorbike. But Rogue Bike, it's right there.
Oh, that's good.
I like that.
Rogue Bike is good.
Yeah.
Rogue Bike.
Yeah. All right. Alternate working title is Rogue Rash.
Oh, that's better. That's so much better. Rogue Rash. Oh. Who owns the IP to Road Rash? It's probably fucking EA or someone we can't. There's no way we'll.
Can we buy that? What's the?
Yeah, there's
$20
Embracer Group.
Yeah,
right now or something.
Yeah,
I think it's.
I googled Road Rash, and the first thing that comes up is verywellhealth.com. Road Rash: symptoms, diagnosis, causes, treatment.
Oh no, I did something. Yeah, I googled something earlier, and the exact same thing happened. I did something, and it was just like I was like, "Don't you know I'm video game? Don't you know I'm a gamer?
Don't you know by now, Google?
Yeah.
Google, you know everything about me."
Rogue Rash is so good. Oh my god, that's an upsettingly good name. That's so good. And your chain gets bigger. Gets like longer. You just have a fucking huge chain.
I feel like Rogue Rash deserves to be made based on that name alone.
Especially if Alex did the chain, because he wouldn't just do like an animation. It would be this like physics chain.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it'd be like a bunch of hinge joints tying together these like heavy mass bodies. That'd be really cool.
And you have to swing it by like right click. Have you ever done so in Sub Rosa? You know the gears are just like it's like the mouse. So like you shift up and down into the gears using your mouse, in Sub Rosa. It's ridiculous. It's so
That'd be really
funny.
cool if this is a mouse and keyboard game that swinging the chain is like there's like a key, like maybe you steer with your mouse, but then if you're swinging the chain, you like hold control and it disengages the steering for the mouse, and then you like spin the mouse in a circle to like spin the chain around, or like spin a joystick or something. That'd be really cool.
What he does in Sub Rosa, I can't remember. I think if you're because you can have your gun out while you're driving in Sub Rosa as well, because they have like left and right hand, I think. And I think if to do the gears, you just hold right click. So it's an elegant way of like going, oh, now I'm doing this.
Yeah,
so
that'd be cool. Yeah,
right click for the chain. God,
yeah,
Rogue Rash is so good.
It'd be good too, because you could like the steering, like you're constantly steering, and then you have to find these narrow little windows to use your weapons, where it's like, okay, there's a straightaway here. I can just like put it on coast mode and use my weapon instead.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna get Alex to like just listen to this podcast. I'll just we just came up with a bunch of shit. If any of this works, just go over there.
Just tell him Rogue Rash. I feel like he'll know what to do from there.
It's such a good. Oh my god, that's upsetting. That's so good. Train Doc on Discord asked a question. You can join our Discord server by becoming a patron. By the way, sorry, I feel like I've done the patron thing too much today. It's just that it's all of our wages, so it's important.
It's just our lives, so no big deal.
Train Doc, who's been with us for a long time, says, I would love to see Noclip covering the Steam Deck and its legacy as the culmination of Valve's hardware efforts. How does the team feel about the deck in general? And also, we had a lot of people asking about this and Playdate. I have ordered both. Neither have arrived yet. Have you guys gone for either or
no?
I want to try the Steam Deck hands-on to see what the size and weight of it is, but like I wish I could just buy it at Best Buy. So one day I'm sure I'll own one, because I still need to finish Persona 4 Golden, and that's now officially like that runs on Steam Deck.
Cool.
So I really want to play that.
Nice. Yeah, I ordered mine when it came out, but I think I'm Q3 this year.
I'm the same way. I really want to just like hold it in my hands and see how it feels. Like I'd like to. My ideal situation would be to go to a Best Buy for like 4 hours and play something there and see how my wrists feel when they kick me out inevitably. Because I have heard people say that it feels really good, but then after you play for like 2-3 hours, it might be a little fatiguing. So I don't know. But I feel like I'm pretty resilient when it comes to like uncomfortable controllers. So
nice. Yeah. It'll make our Elden Rings in the wilderness videos a lot less interesting, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it'll just be us playing games with no conflict.
Just hanging out. Nothing easy. That's a podcast this week. It's a long one, gents. We had a lot to talk about. A bunch of stuff hitting YouTube and Patreon and all that stuff. Our Ravenholm gameplay showcase is now live. It is up on the internet. Let me check to see if it's been taken down.
Okay, that's enough of an introduction. Are you excited? I was when I got to play it. I'm excited for you all to see it finally. Let's jump into the introduction to Ravenholm with everyone's favorite Half-Life 2 priest, Father Grigori.
Nope, it's still there. So thanks to everyone. There was an element of asking for permission and an element of asking for forgiveness on this one. So hopefully people are digging it and enjoying a look at a cancelled and unfinished game from a big AAA studio on one of the biggest franchises in the world. This is kind of new territory for us for sure, and not the type of thing you get to see very often. So we're very proud to have it out there, and also not to just dump the gameplay, but to have some good context for it and telling some extra stories and doing it in a sort of what I feel is a more responsible way of doing it. Because I wanted to get this gameplay out, but I also didn't want to damage our reputation or put something out in a sloppy manner where then we suddenly have to like answer a million questions about it. I feel like the video answers a lot of questions. It's been 2 years since the original video came out and people sort of know what Ravenholm was and why it was cancelled and all those things. So go check that out. It's over an hour long over on the main channel. Next week's podcast is going to be all about Doom. It's patron only podcast. There'll be a little preview snippet here on the feed. So go be a patron if you want to check out that. And then we'll be back with a regularly scheduled podcast the week after that. Patron content this week. We had the patron show went up today. We have a whole post about the new tiers, which I won't labor too much into. And we're starting our extended interview cuts for the bonus video level patrons, which is the $10 tier. We're starting that this month with some really cool extended interview cuts from our back catalogue. One is with Gen Z, all about the art direction on the first 3 Supergiant games. We also have a fantastic hour and a half plus long interview with Todd Howard about Bethesda Game Studios from our Bethesda documentary recorded back in 2018.
We could record, right? We could do this and record us and put it up and put it on our channel.
Right.
But it doesn't have your filter. Like what you bring to it is, I think it's important.
So they're really cool. They're well put together. We're edited, so it's not like unedited or anything, but they're as long as we can get them. And I think the Todd Howard one, you know, we had a bunch of it in the Bethesda doc, but I think you get a better sense of him and his time at Bethesda if you watch the unfiltered one. At Noclip Video on Twitter, at Danny Dwyer, at Frank Howley, at Jeremy B. Jane, at Garasha. Hope Jesse's internet is. We're gonna try a different time of day next week because I feel like this is just a bad time. We can get him back in here. Yeah, that's it. Check out the podcast wherever podcasts are sold. Drop us reviews. Do all that good stuff. Frank, what are you doing for the rest of your day? Is it more unpacking? You gonna play some games or what's going on?
Yeah, a balance of that. Tomorrow I'm hauling more bookshelves up. I think I'm going to Home Depot today to get that TV box and bubble wrap and all the packaging supplies.
Godspeed with that. And Jeremy, what about yourself? What's the day look like?
Oh Lord, I don't know. I might go scout out. You and we're filming tonight. If I am,
we are.
Yeah, so I got to go make sure that the wild mountain lions aren't laying in wait for us, and the grass isn't neck high.
Literal mountain lions.
There is a mountain lion that lives in my back area, and we will be out there at night when it hunts.
If I die with you, eaten by a lion while we record a episode of Counterpoint about the Unreal Tournament map Facing Worlds, I cannot think of a cooler thing to put on my headstone. So
yeah, if I survive and you die, I'll eulogize you by saying he died doing what he loved, like in such a profound sense.
Unbelievable. Clutching my UT99 box. I will just don't let the mountain lion gnaw on that. That's all I ask you.
You could have used it to block the mountain lion, but instead you tucked it behind yourself and took the hit.
I did. I buried it in my top and turned so that he could eat my back. That's what I did. Take me from behind. Big lion man. Okay, that's a podcast. We'll be back on episode 70 next week. No, I guess the week after. We'll number the other ones differently because there are some on this main feed that were old Patreon exclusive ones, but we kept the numbering and people are like, "Hey, where's episode 21 gone?" I'm like, "Oh, fuck it, it's Patreon only." Anyway, that's been a podcast. Bye.
Goodbye.